I woke up on Thanksgiving morning to nothing. Not the AIH so peaceful kind of nothing. The creepy kind. The kind that makes the hair on your arms stand up even though you are I-73 and thought your body was done with surprises. I've been an early bird my whole life. My eyes pop open at 5:30 a.m., whether I like it or not. And on Thanksgiving, I'm usually up even earlier. That's my Super Bowl. Most years I'm already planning out the turkey in my head, deciding which grandkid gets to help peel potatoes, picturing pumpkin pies cooling on the counter while the parade plays in the background. But that morning, no parade, no cartoons, no little feet thumping down the hallway, just silence. I sat up slow, my knees complaining the way they always do, and reached for my old robe. It smelled like lavender and laundry soap and every winter holiday I've lived through. I opened my bedroom door and stepped into the hallway, expecting to hear something, a kid whispering, the coffee maker gurgling, my son Michael clanking around in the kitchen like he always does. Nothing. The guest room where my grandkids always crash when they stay over. Beds made. Pillows fluffed. Not a single stuffed animal in sight. They usually drag a whole zoo with them. That's when my stomach did a little flip. Not full-on panic yet. Just that okay, something's off feeling. Maybe they ran to the store. Maybe Amanda wanted to do some last-minute shopping, or Michael took the kids to see the parade set up downtown. That's what I told myself as I made my way downstairs, one hand glued to the railing. The kitchen stopped me cold. Counters spotless. No mixing bowls, no flour dust, no half-open spice jars. On Thanksgiving morning, my kitchen is usually a war zone, organized chaos. This looked like a staged photo in a catalog. I went straight to the coffee maker. Stone cold. No timer set. No used filter. That's when I looked out the window over the sink. Empty driveway. Both cars gone. Michael's pickup, the one I helped with the down payment. Amanda's precious SUV she absolutely needed for the kids. Gone. Just two dark oil spots on the concrete staring back at me like eyes. I was still standing there, fingers pressed to the glass, when I noticed the paper on the counter, folded perfectly, held down by that ugly little turkey magnet I bought at a craft fair because the kids thought it was hilarious. I knew Amanda's handwriting before I even opened it. Neat, pretty, a little slanted like it was posing. Mom, please don't worry. We decided to spend Thanksgiving in Hawaii this year. You wouldn't have liked the long flight. We thought it was best to let you rest at home. Back in a week, love, Amanda. I read it 3 times. It didn't change. They didn't call. They didn't ask. They didn't even give me the courtesy of a lie that made sense. Just, we decided. Not we asked, or we hoped you'd understand. Just a done deal I apparently didn't need to be informed about until they were already in the sky. And that line, you wouldn't have liked the flight. As if they'd sat around a table, thoughtfully debating my comfort. Please, nobody asked what I liked when they handed me their bills every month. Here's the strange part, I didn't cry. I thought my chest would cave in, that I'd slide down the cabinet and sob like you see in movies, but instead, I felt weirdly calm. Like my brain had just switched onto a different channel. So I put the note back down, smoothed the crease, and made my own coffee. Strong. Too strong, if you ask my doctor. I sat at the table in my usual chair, staring out at the bird feeder in the backyard. A bright red cardinal landed, pecked at the seeds, and flew off like it had someplace important to be. Must be nice, I thought. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself think clearly without all the "but I am his mother and good grandma's Dante make waves" nonsense I'd been feeding myself. Here's what was true. No feelings attached. My son and his family flew to Hawaii for Thanksgiving. They did not invite me. They did not even tell me they were going. They left a note on my counter with my turkey magnet. That's not love. That's logistics. I looked around that kitchen. At the brand new stainless steel fridge I'd bought when the old one was too small. At the fancy blender Amanda just had to have for her smoothies. At the big farmhouse table I paid for so we can all sit together. It hit me like a truck. I had bought myself a front row seat to my own loneliness. Before I keep going, let me put you in this with me for a second. If you're listening to this right now, drop a comment and tell me, would you have forgiven them right there, or would you have packed a bag? And hey, if you've ever been used by family, hit that like button and subscribe so I know I am not the only one who had to learn the hard way. Alright. Back to that kitchen. My brain started rewinding, like someone hit back on a remote. 3 years earlier. Harold, my husband of 48 years, had passed in his sleep. Everyone called it a blessing. Maybe it was. It still ripped me in half. The house we raised Michael in suddenly felt too big and too empty. His shirts still hung in the closet. His slippers were still next to the bed. I'd stand in the doorway and think, if I just don't touch anything, maybe none of this is real. That's when Michael swooped in. Daily calls. Surprise grocery runs. Showing up with takeout and a worried look. At first, it felt sweet. I thought, wow, I raised a good man. One night he sat across from me at that same kitchen table and did the whole concerned son speech. Mom, you shouldn't be alone right now. It's not healthy, he said, voice soft, like he was talking to one of the kids. He told me he and Amanda had been talking. They had a spare room in the basement. The kids would love having me around. They could really use the help. Daycare is expensive. You know how it is, Mom. And I fell for it. He painted this cozy picture, me waking up to the grandkids' giggles, us all eating dinner together, me being part of their everyday life instead of stuck alone in my old house with a TV for company. I remember thinking, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do now. Be useful. Then came the house. Their rental was too small. But if we combined resources, we could get something really nice. A house with space. A yard, a room just for me. Harold left me well taken care of. He worked hard, saved harder, and the life insurance was comfortable. When Michael said investment in the family, I heard Harold's voice in my head going, family first, Margie. So I wrote the check for the down payment. No drama. No paperwork drama. Just trust. The first months really were sweet. I won't lie. I woke up to cereal bowls and cartoon theme songs. Amanda asked my opinion on curtains and recipes. Michael sat with me at night and told me about work while I folded tiny socks. I packed lunches, did school drop-offs, read bedtime stories. When the washer broke, I bought a new one. When the electric bill was crazy high this month, I covered it. Then the next one. And the next. Every time I opened my wallet, they called me a blessing. Mom, you're such a blessing. We're so blessed to have you. I wore that word like a medal. But slowly, the tone shifted. Mom, can you watch the kids? We already told them you would. Mom, we're counting on you to cook tonight. We invited friends. Mom, why are you going out? Who's going to be here with the kids? The thank yous got shorter. Then they stopped. One night, about 6 months before that Thanksgiving, I was lying down early with a cold. I left my bedroom door cracked. Old habit. Amanda's voice floated down the hallway. She was on the phone with someone, and she'd forgotten the walls were thin. She means well, Amanda said, with that fake nice tone people use when they're actually annoyed. But she's so stuck in her ways. Sometimes it's just easier to work around her. Silence. Then whoever was on the other end said something. No, we can't ask her to leave. Amanda laughed. We'd be screwed. She pays for like everything. The bills, the appliances, the kids' stuff. Honestly, we'd be lost without her money. Her money. Not her. Her money. She kept going. Between you and me, sometimes I just want my house back, you know. Our space. Without her always. There. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, my throat burning. I didn't say a word, didn't storm out, didn't confront her. I just filed it away, like a receipt. After that, I started noticing more. The way Michael said my mortgage when half that house was literally paid for in my name. The way they planned weekends and date nights without even telling me, just leaving a sticky note. Pizza money is on the counter. Kids know you're watching them. The way Amanda rearranged the kitchen, I stalked like I was some live-in maid. They weren't treating me like family. They were treating me like a service they didn't have to pay for. Fast forward back to Thanksgiving morning. I'm alone in the pristine kitchen I funded, holding a note from the woman who said they'd be lost without my money, telling me I wouldn't like the flight. That was the moment something in me quietly flipped, not rage, not drama. Something colder, sharper, clear. I rinsed my coffee mug, dried it, put it in the rack. Then I went to my bedroom, opened my nightstand drawer, and pulled out a blue folder I'd been stuffing papers into for 3 years. Receipts, the TV, the sofa set, the stainless steel fridge, the washer and dryer, the patio furniture, the grill, the kids' bunk beds I bought as a surprise, the lawnmower, the utility bills, even the cashier's check for the down payment on the house. All of it with my name on it. I spread them out on my bed like playing cards. Page after page of Mom, could you? And it'd really help us if translated into numbers and dates and transaction IDs. I didn't feel stupid. I didn't feel used, not in that moment. I felt armed. It's all mine anyway, I said out loud, and hearing those words clicked something loose in my chest. I grabbed my phone and typed with my old, clumsy thumbs, moving companies near me, found a family-owned one with good reviews, hit call. Good morning, Prestige Moving. A man answered, chipper. How can we help you today? Good morning, I said, as politely as if I were ordering tea. I need a full house move tomorrow, if possible. He hesitated. Ma'am, tomorrow is Thanksgiving. We do work holidays, but there's an extra charge. That's fine, I said. I'll cover it. We went through the details. Address, time, estimate. He asked if it was a full move or just a few items. Quite a bit, I said, eyes sliding over my receipts. I'll have a list ready for you. He promised a crew at 8 a.m. I thanked him and hung up. The silence in that house didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt expectant, like the moment right before a storm breaks. I sat at my little desk, opened a fresh notepad, and at the top of the page wrote, things that are coming with me. Then I started listing every single thing I had paid for. Television, sofa, armchair, coffee table, fridge, stove, microwave, blender, espresso machine, washer, dryer, vacuum patio set, grill, line after line, hours passing in quiet determination. The more I wrote, the lighter I felt. By mid-afternoon, I had 3 full pages. My hand ached, but my heart didn't. For the first time since Harold died, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like a woman with options. That night, instead of prepping a feast for people who'd chosen a beach over me, I baked myself one small pumpkin pie. Just for me. Extra cinnamon. Ate a big warm slice at the kitchen table and didn't think about who'd get leftovers. Before bed, I stacked the receipts neatly back into the blue folder and set it in my purse. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. But it was about damn time I packed my own life up and took it back. When the movers showed up the next morning, it wasn't even light out yet. The sky looked bruised, all gray and pink streaks, and the air had that icy bite that makes your breath visible. The first guy, big shoulders and a smile that said he'd seen worse, knocked on the door at 7:58 a.m., sharp. Morning, ma'am, he said, rubbing his hands together. You sure you want to do this today? Most folks are home watching football or burning turkeys. I smiled back. Trust me, son. My turkey's already burned. He blinked, not sure if I was joking, then motioned to the crew behind him. 3 men. Work gloves, heavy-duty dollies. Efficient, respectful, the kind of people you tip well. I handed him my list, 3 pages long, typed in bold. Everything marked here was purchased by me. Everything else stays. He glanced down, whistled low. You're cleaning house, huh? You could say that. I didn't tell them the full story. Didn't need to. They'd probably seen their share of breakups and evictions. Families implode all the time. Mine was just another casualty with better furniture. They started with the living room. Watching them unmount that giant flat screen, the same one Michael needed for the Super Bowl, was almost poetic. I sat on the armrest of my recliner, sipping coffee, directing traffic like a general. That sofa too. Yes, the rug. No, leave the kids' drawings. Those are theirs. Every item they moved out felt like reclaiming a little piece of myself. The house echoed as they cleared it. Without the hum of the fridge or the clatter of toys, it sounded hollow, like it was holding its breath. By 9 a.m., the truck was half full. When I walked into the garage and saw my old chest freezer, another "Mom, can we borrow this?" situation that had turned into a permanent relocation. It was still full. Inside, frozen chicken, leftover casseroles, and 2 half-empty tubs of ice cream with the kids' names scribbled on the lids. I stood there a minute, freezer fog drifting up around me, and thought about all the Sunday dinners. The birthdays, the late-night snacks I'd made for them. Every single act of love I'd quietly packed away in Tupperware and foil. Then I smiled, unplugged it, and said to the movers, "Take the freezer too." While they loaded, I grabbed a trash bag and started going through drawers, my drawers, the ones they'd filled with everything but respect. When I found something that didn't belong, an envelope tucked behind the manuals. My name wasn't on it. It said equity agreement in Michael's handwriting. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Inside was a draft document, looked like something they were planning to file, showing my name being quietly removed from the property deed. My son and his wife had already met with a realtor, apparently discussing options. Options, as in, selling the house out from under me. They'd penciled in words like gift contribution and non-co-honor status. Gift, that's when I actually laughed. Out loud, a deep, bitter laugh that scared the movers for a second. "Everything okay, ma'am?" one of them asked. "Better than ever," I said, tucking that envelope right into my blue folder with the receipts. If they thought they were cutting me out, they were about to learn how sharp I could be. I stepped outside, phone in hand, called the one person who always had my back even when I didn't deserve it, Rita, my old neighbor from our first house. Retired paralegal, sharper than any lawyer I'd ever met. "Morning, sunshine," she answered, voice raspy from too much coffee and not enough patience. "You baking something good today?" "Just baking justice, honey," she laughed. What did they do now? I told her everything. The note, the missing cars, the fake equity papers. There was silence, then a slow whistle. "Girl, I told you those two had slick written all over them. You still got that folder I told you to keep?" "Right here, good. Bring it over when you're done. We'll make sure they can't sell a napkin without your signature." God bless that woman. If life were fair, Rita would have been on the Supreme Court. By 11 a.m., the house looked like a crime scene after evidence collection. Bare walls, exposed outlets, echoing footsteps. The movers looked at me, waiting for final orders. "Everything good, ma'am?" the lead guy asked. "Almost," I said, walking to the kitchen one last time. I took the turkey magnet off the fridge and pocketed it. The note stayed pinned to the counter right where I'd found it, but I left a little addition. I flipped the page over and wrote in thick black marker, "Hope the trip was worth it. Love, Mom." Then, right below that, I taped a copy of the invoice from the moving company, itemized, paid in full. Petty, maybe. Satisfying, absolutely. The movers had just pulled out of the driveway when my phone buzzed. Michael. Perfect timing. I hit speaker and kept driving. "Hey Mom," he started, voice way too cheerful. "Happy Thanksgiving. We just landed. You won't believe the view here, I can imagine," I cut in. "Hate to interrupt your paradise, but there's something you might want to know." He went quiet. "Everything okay?" "Oh, everything's peachy," I said. "The house might look a little different when you get home though." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I took everything that belonged to me. You know, the stuff my money bought. Including the freezer. Hope you didn't have ice cream plans." Silence. Then the sharp inhale I'd been waiting for. "Mom, what you can't just..." "Oh, I can, sweetheart. Remember how you always said I was part of the family? Turns out, families share things. So I shared them back. With myself." Amanda's voice came in faintly in the background, sharp like a knife. What is she talking about? Your wife can read the note I left on the counter, I said. Might clear things up. Mom, come on, he said, trying to soften his tone. You're overreacting. We were gonna surprise you when we got back. A big family dinner. We stop. My voice came out colder than I expected. You surprised me enough, son. Click. I ended the call. They came back 3 days later. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard about it from Rita. Turns out, word travels fast in our neighborhood. Apparently, Amanda marched through that door like a storm, screaming robbery before she even saw the note. Michael tried to calm her down until he spotted the invoice and realized exactly what had happened. Then came the part that still makes me grin when I think about it. Amanda called the police. Yes, she actually called 911 to report that her mother-in-law had stolen her furniture. The responding officer, bless his soul, looked through the receipts I'd left copies of in a folder labeled proof. Every major item tied directly to my bank account or card. He told them, politely but firmly, that no crime had occurred. Everything removed was legally mine. Amanda apparently lost her mind. Michael just sat on the empty couch frame, staring at the wall where the TV used to be. Poetic, really. Of course, Amanda wasn't done. A week later, I got served papers. She'd filed a civil claim, said I'd damaged property value, and acted with malicious intent. Cute. Rita and I went to court. She didn't even need a lawyer. She brought the receipts, the deed copies, the equity agreement draft I'd found. When the judge, an older woman who clearly had no patience for nonsense, flipped through the file, her eyebrows hit the ceiling. Mrs. Lang, she said to Amanda, are you aware that your mother-in-law is a co-payer on the property mortgage and has furnished more than 60% of the home's interior value? Amanda started stammering something about family arrangements. The judge raised a hand. Then, it seems to me that Mrs. Lang was simply retrieving her own belongings. This case is dismissed. Bang of the gavel. Done. Rita leaned over and whispered. That's what we call a legal Thanksgiving miracle. After court, Michael followed me out to the parking lot. He looked older, somehow, smaller. Mom, wait, he said. I didn't know she was gonna file anything. I swear. I turned around, holding his gaze. You didn't stop her either. He rubbed his forehead. I messed up. I know I did, but can't we just? No, Michael. We can't just. You made your choice the day you left that note, instead of picking up a phone. He nodded, swallowing hard. You really took everything. Everything I paid for. I paused, softened a little. I left the kids' toys. He laughed quietly, like that detail somehow broke him more than the rest. Amanda's furious. I bet, I said, turning toward my car. Tell her she can buy a new blender with all that money she saved on airfare. The movers dropped everything at my old house, the one I'd been renting out since Harold passed. It needed work, but it was home. I spent the next week setting it up again exactly how I liked it. The recliner by the window. The kitchen curtains I actually chose myself. The smell of my coffee, strong and bitter, filling the air. Rita came over every evening to help unpack and gossip. You sure you don't miss the chaos? She asked one night, handing me a wine glass. I smiled. I missed the grandkids. The rest, not so much. You think he'll come around? Maybe, maybe not. But I finally came around to myself. And that's enough. About a month later, I heard a car in the driveway. I looked through the curtain. It was Michael, standing there awkwardly with the kids behind him. Amanda wasn't with them. He waved. I opened the door. Hey Mom, he said quietly. Can we come in? The kids ran past him, straight to the couch like nothing ever happened. They hugged me tight, babbling about Christmas lists and missing my pies. Michael looked around at the house. You got it all set up again. I did, I said. On my terms this time. He nodded, took a deep breath. Amanda's staying with her sister. We're working things out. I wanted to apologize, face to face. Apologies are easy, I said gently. Change is harder. I know. He looked down. I was stupid. I let her talk me into things I shouldn't have. I should have protected you, not used you. That one hit deep. I wanted to stay angry, but my heart's never been good at that. I sighed. You're my son, Michael. That doesn't mean I owe you, but it means I'll always want the best for you. He smiled, small but real. Can we do Thanksgiving here next year? The right way. I thought for a moment, then nodded. If you bring your own turkey. He laughed, and for the first time in years, it sounded like my boy again. A few weeks later, Rita came over waving her phone. You've gone viral, girl. Apparently, someone, one of the movers, maybe, had posted a TikTok telling the Thanksgiving mom story. 1 million views overnight. Comments full of people cheering. Go grandma. And that's how you reclaim your peace. Kelly Clarkson's show even reached out for an interview, but I passed. Some stories belong to the people who lived them. Instead, I wrote my own post on Facebook. If they leave you behind, don't chase them. Just take your blessings back and build yourself a new table. That one got shared thousands of times. Now, every Thanksgiving morning, I still wake up early, 5:30 a.m., same as always. I make my coffee, light a candle for Harold, and whisper, "You'd be proud of me, old man." I finally grew a backbone. The grandkids come over later, help me in the kitchen, and when the parade starts, I let them turn the volume all the way up. No silence anymore. No cold kitchens. Just noise, laughter, and the smell of real home. And tucked on my fridge with that same ugly little turkey magnet is the note Amanda left that day, now framed, like a reminder. It reads, "Mom, please don't worry." Below it, in my handwriting, a little addition, "I'm not worried anymore." 6 months passed after that Thanksgiving fiasco. The house felt calm again. Too calm, maybe. I was finally sleeping through the night, cooking for myself, laughing with Rita over bad reality shows. Michael came by often. He helped mow the lawn, fixed the porch light, brought the kids every other weekend. I almost let myself believe that the worst was behind us. But peace never lasts long when people think you still have something they can take. It was a rainy Tuesday when Amanda showed up. No call. No text. Just her shiny black SUV in my driveway, windshield wipers still going. When I opened the door, she stood there, sunglasses on, even though the sky was gray. She had that stiff smile that says, "This isn't a social call." "Margaret," she said, voice sugary and tight. "You look." "Well, depends who's asking," I said. "You here for the grandkids or the furniture I didn't steal?" She ignored the jab and stepped inside like she still owned the place. She looked around, my clean kitchen, the smell of coffee, my life neatly put back together, and I could see the envy tightening her jaw. "Michael mentioned you've been seeing a lot of him lately," she said, like it was an accusation. I raised an eyebrow. "He's my son." "Sure," she said, shrugging. "I just hope you're not turning him against me." That made me laugh, a short, dry sound. "Sweetheart, you managed that all by yourself." Her smile cracked then. "You think you won, don't you?" she hissed. "You humiliated us. Everyone knows what you did. You turned him into a joke." I leaned against the counter, calm as can be. "You called the cops on your mother-in-law for taking her own stuff, Amanda. That's not humiliation, that's public education." She flushed, her cheeks red as a sunset. "You're not going to ruin me. I'll fix this. You'll see." Then she turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the little glass panel rattled. Rita called it a soap opera exit. I called it foreshadowing. 2 weeks later, Michael stopped by. He looked nervous. He always did when his wife was brewing trouble. "Mom," he started carefully, "Amanda's been talking about maybe revisiting the house situation." I tilted my head. "Revisiting? You mean the one she already lost in court?" He sighed. "She thinks you took more than you should have." I put my coffee down. "Does she have receipts?" "No." "Then she should stop talking." He rubbed his face, looking 10 years older. "She's been contacting lawyers again. She says she found a way to claim emotional damages." I actually laughed. "She better find a way to claim evidence, too." He tried to smile. but it came out shaky. Mom, she's different lately. Meaner. I don't even know who I married anymore. I reached across the table, patted his hand. You'll figure it out, son. Just remember, a woman who lies to get money will lie to keep it. He nodded, eyes glassy, and left. I watched him pull out of the driveway and prayed, not for me, but for him. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Langley. This is First River Bank. We're calling to confirm a second mortgage application under your name. My stomach dropped. What application? The woman on the phone hesitated. A property in your name, the same one listed as joint ownership with your son and daughter-in-law. The paperwork was filed yesterday. We just need your signature verification. I felt the blood rush out of my head. Amanda. She was trying to use my name to take out another loan on the house I'd already pulled my money from. I didn't authorize anything. I said firmly, do not approve that loan. Freeze it now. The woman on the line paused. Understood, ma'am. We'll flag it for fraud and notify our legal department. When I hung up, my hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. I called Rita immediately. Fraud, she said, voice sharp. You're kidding. I wish I was. All right, she said, already typing something in the background. Forward me that bank number. I'll make some calls. And Margaret. Yeah. Don't you dare sit on this. If that witch forged your name, we're going to make her regret every pen stroke. It didn't take long. The bank traced the application back to Amanda's email. Same IP, same digital signature. She descanned an old copy of my ID from the time we declosed on the first mortgage and forged my signature. That was enough to get the police involved. When the detective showed up at her doorstep, she played the usual act: tears, confusion, fake shock. I thought Mom said it was fine. She wailed. We needed it for renovations. But the officer wasn't buying it. The bank's timestamp proved she'd filed after our last court date. Amanda ended up charged with attempted fraud and forgery. Michael called me that night, broken. She's in custody, Mom. I don't know what to do. I closed my eyes. You let the law handle it. She dug her hole. He sniffed, quiet. I should have seen it coming. She's been different ever since you left. She's been herself. I corrected gently. You're just seeing it clearly now. It took months for the case to wrap up. The court gave Amanda community service, probation, and a permanent mark on her record. The marriage crumbled right after that. Michael filed for divorce, got custody of the kids, and moved closer to me. I didn't gloat, not once. But when I watched my grandkids play in my backyard that spring, laughing under the blooming dogwood trees, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. Still, there was one more twist coming. Because apparently, karma doesn't clock out after business hours. By midsummer, a for sale sign popped up in front of Michael and Amanda's old house, the same one I'd furnished, the same one she'd nearly lost to greed. It sold fast. The new owner. Some fancy guy from out of town. Real estate investor type. One day, he showed up on my porch with a friendly smile. Mrs. Langley, I'm Daniel Reed. Your son's old place is mine now. Hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, I said. Welcome to the neighborhood. He looked around, admiring my garden. Place has good bones. Shame about the last owners though. Heard they had a family incident. I smirked. That's one way to put it. We ended up talking for an hour. He mentioned he might turn the house into a rental, short-term stays, high-end tenants. I told him about the repairs I'd done over the years, the little quirks of the place. He took notes, like I was the blueprint. As he was leaving, he said, if you ever need a hand around here, ma'am, don't hesitate. I didn't think much of it then. But a few weeks later, that same man would be the reason Amanda learned her final, brutal lesson. It started with a knock. Late evening. I opened the door, expecting Michael. It was her. Amanda looked different. Not bad, just beaten. Her hair was flat, her face tired, her clothes expensive but wrinkled. I'm not here to fight, she said quickly. I need help. Those words almost made me laugh. The woman who called the cops on me was now asking for help. I stepped aside. "You got 5 minutes." She sat at my kitchen table, the same one she used to criticize for being too old-fashioned. Her hands trembled. "I lost everything," she said. "Michael filed for divorce. The bank froze my accounts. I'm living in my sister's guest room." I crossed my arms. "Actions have consequences, Amanda." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know. I messed up, okay. I was angry. I wanted control. But I can't even get a job now with that charge on my record." "That's unfortunate," I said flatly. She sniffled. "I just need one favor. A reference. Just something to get me started again." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something. For years, she'd fed off my guilt, my kindness, my fear of being alone. She knew how to twist sympathy like a weapon. Not anymore. "You know what, Amanda?" I said softly. "You should ask Daniel Reed." She blinked. "Who?" "The man who bought your house. He's in real estate. Maybe he's hiring." Her eyes lit up, hope flashing through for the first time. "You think he'd talk to me?" I smiled. "He's very approachable. I'll give you his number." And I did. 2 weeks later, Rita showed up on my porch with a grin so wide I thought she'd won the lottery. "Margie," she said, "you won't believe this." She held up her phone, opened a neighborhood Facebook post. There it was, a long, angry rant from Amanda Langley. Apparently, she'd gone to meet Daniel for what she thought was a job interview. Instead, she found out he wasn't just any investor, he was Rita's nephew, and he already knew the entire story. He'd let her talk herself in circles about unfair treatment and how my ex's mother ruined me, before dropping the truth. "Oh, I know Margaret," he told her. "She's a friend of the family. And if she warned me about someone, I'd listen." Amanda apparently left that meeting shaking, humiliated, and furious again. I couldn't help it. I laughed until my ribs hurt. Months turned into a year. Amanda moved out of state eventually, remarried some poor soul who probably didn't know what he was in for. Michael thrived. He started coaching Little League, got promoted at work, even bought a smaller house 2 blocks away. The kids ran between our homes like they owned the street, and me. I finally felt content. Every morning, I'd walk to the porch with my coffee, watch the sunrise, and thank God that I learned even at 73, that love without respect isn't love at all. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, me, Michael, the kids, Rita, little Emma looked up and said, "Grandma, is it true you took a whole house one time?" Rita choked on her wine. Michael groaned. I smiled. "Not the whole house, sweetheart, just everything that was mine." She grinned. "That's kinda awesome." "Yeah," I said, winking. It kinda was. A year later, out of pure curiosity, I checked the old property online, the house that started it all. The listing showed it had sold again, this time for nearly double the price. The description read, "Fully renovated. Updated appliances. New furniture included, all donated by local resident M. Langley." I laughed. That was Daniel's little joke. He'd apparently kept some of my things when I donated them later, staged the house beautifully, and sold it for a profit. When I saw him at the grocery store a few days later, he winked. "Consider it poetic justice, Mrs. Langley." I smiled back. Justice always pays in the end, Daniel, always. You know, people think revenge means screaming, breaking things, getting even, but real revenge. It's quiet, it's dignity, it's peace. It's sitting in your favorite chair, surrounded by the things you earned, sipping coffee that tastes better because you bought it yourself. It's seeing your name, not on some fake loan form, not on a guilt trip, but on a title deed, a life you rebuilt with your own hands. And it's knowing that the people who tried to play you have to live every day remembering that you won without ever raising your voice. That's payback. The real kind. 15 years. That's how long it had been since that wild Thanksgiving morning when my family decided to go to Hawaii without me. 15 years since I watched movers carry away every piece of furniture I paid for. 15 years since I took back my name, my peace, and my life. And in those 15 years, the world spun on. Kids grew, marriages crumbled, houses changed hands. But one thing stayed steady: me. Margaret Langley. The woman everyone underestimated until she finally stopped letting them. Grace, my youngest granddaughter, had been 7 when it all went down. Now she was 22, studying social work in college, and sharper than a whip. She had my eyes, Harold's temper, and her father's easy grin. When she came to visit one summer, she brought her camera. "Grandma," she said, "I'm doing a documentary for my class about family resilience. You know, how people rebuild after betrayal." I laughed. "Honey, are you making me the poster child for revenge now?" She smirked. "You kinda are the blueprint." And that S, when it hit me, she'd grown up hearing half versions of my story. Michael had told her the basics, but always gently, like a bedtime cautionary tale. "Don't take advantage of the people who love you." She never really knew what happened behind closed doors, or how deep the scars ran, so I let her interview me. We sat in my sunroom, afternoon lights spilling across the floor, her phone balanced on a little tripod. "Okay, Grandma," she said, pressing record, "start from the beginning. Like, what made you finally say enough?" I smiled. "Oh, sweetheart. You don't wake up brave one day, you just get tired of feeling small." She leaned forward. "So it wasn't about revenge." "No," I said, "it was about remembering who I was before they convinced me I needed permission to exist." She nodded slowly, like she was tasting the words. That kid had no idea how close I came to disappearing into that house, not physically, but emotionally. I told her about the note, the empty driveway, the movers, the court. She listened like every word mattered. At one point, she stopped recording and said softly, "I'm glad you did it. If you hadn't, I don't think Dad would have ever woken up." I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "That's the thing about truth, baby, it's contagious. Once one person stands up, everyone else starts stretching their spine, too." After the interview, Grace helped me clean out the attic. We found old Christmas ornaments, Harold's bowling trophies, a box of photos from the 80s, and tucked beneath it, the old blue folder. "The famous receipts?" she asked, eyes wide. I chuckled. "The very ones." She flipped through them, amazed. "You kept everything?" "Every dollar," I said proudly. "That folder saved my life." Grace paused on one paper, the equity agreement Amanda had forged. She frowned. "She really tried to take your name off." "She did, but karma took her name off the mailbox instead." Grace laughed, shaking her head. "Grandma, that's cold. It's called boundaries, baby. They just look cold to people who lived off your warmth too long." 2 months later, Grace invited me to her college to watch her final project. She'd titled it The Thanksgiving She Took It Back. I sat in the auditorium surrounded by college kids, my coffee trembling in my hand. When the video started, I almost didn't recognize my own voice, steady, older, but still sharp. Grace had interviewed other people, to my neighbors, the movers, even Rita. Each one told a different angle of the same story. Rita's part made me laugh out loud. She told me she wasn't getting even, Rita said. She was just getting tidy. The audience chuckled. Then Grace cut to a shot of Michael, sitting in his backyard, looking straight into the camera. "My mom saved me from a life I didn't even know was broken," he said. "Sometimes losing everything is the only way to see who's really on your side." My eyes filled with tears right there in that dark auditorium. When the credits rolled, the room went quiet, and then the applause started. Loud, long, honest. Grace ran down the aisle and hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "You liked it?" she asked, eyes bright. "I loved it," I whispered. "You made me proud. And you made me real again." Amanda's shadow. Later that night, back home, I got a message request on Facebook. It was from her. Amanda. The profile picture showed her in a bland office somewhere, her smile stiff, her eyes tired. The message was short. "Saw the documentary. I deserved what happened. I hope you're doing okay." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back, I hope you learned something. I did. Forgiveness doesn't mean I forget, it means I stop giving you free rent in my head. Then I hit send and logged out. That was the last time I ever heard from her. Life goes on. The years rolled by easy after that. Michael remarried a good woman this time, kind, grounded. Rita passed peacefully in her sleep at 86, leaving me her recipe book and a note that said, "Keep stirring the pot, Margie." Grace graduated with honors. Her documentary went viral online. People called it the most satisfying real-life justice story ever told. It got picked up by a local station, then a streaming platform. Suddenly, I was getting letters from women across the country, widows, single moms, grandmothers, all saying the same thing. You gave me courage. And that was worth more than any inheritance, any furniture, any house. One afternoon, a package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was a leather-bound journal. The first page read, "For Margaret Langley, the woman who taught us that peace is power." It was filled with handwritten stories from women who'd watched Grace's documentary. Each one a story of taking back control from abusive kids, greedy relatives, manipulative partners. Dozens of them. I spent hours reading through their letters, tears slipping down my cheeks. I realized something big that day. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a movement. Grace's promise that evening. Grace came by. She'd been quiet lately, nervous even. Finally, she said, "Grandma, there's something I want to tell you." I smiled. "What's up, kiddo?" She hesitated, then blurted out, "I want to start a foundation." "In your name," I blinked. "A foundation?" "Yeah," she said, excitement spilling out. "For older women who get financially taken advantage of by their families. We'll teach them how to protect their assets, get legal help, rebuild. I want to call it the Grit Project. After you." I sat there speechless. She reached over, grabbed my hand. "You turned pain into purpose, Grandma. I want to do the same." I finally found my voice. "You don't need my permission, sweetheart. You already have my legacy." She hugged me, whispering, "We'll make sure no one else ever gets left behind," with a note on the counter. A few years later, it was Thanksgiving again, my last one, though I didn't know it then. The whole family was there. Michael and his wife brought the turkey. Grace brought a film crew. She was turning the foundation's first anniversary into a short feature. The house smelled like roasted garlic, cinnamon pie, and laughter. I sat at the head of the table. Same old spot, same old mug of coffee beside my plate. When everyone quieted down, Grace stood and said, "This year, I'm thankful for one woman, the reason this family found its way back." She pointed at me. "Nana Grit." Everyone clapped, even the little ones. My great-grandkids shouted, "Nana Grit," like it was a superhero name. I smiled so big my cheeks hurt. All right. Y'all gonna make me blush before dessert." We laughed until our sides hurt. And for the first time in my long, messy, wonderful life, I felt what I'd been chasing all along. Peace that didn't depend on anybody else's approval. When I passed the following spring, Grace found a letter in my nightstand. It was short, just one page. "If you're reading this, kiddo, I'm finally with your grandpa again. Don't cry. We had a good run. Tell the world what I told you. Love hard. Forgive, slow. But when someone crosses the line, make sure they trip on it." She read that line at my memorial. People laughed through their tears. That was exactly how I wanted to be remembered. 5 years later, Grace stood on a stage in New York City, accepting an award for the Grit Project. The foundation had helped thousands of women reclaim their finances and independence. She looked out at the crowd, tears shining in her eyes, and said, "My grandmother once told me that revenge isn't loud, it's steady. It's building a life so solid that no one can knock it over again." She didn't just take back her furniture, she took back her power. And now, we help others do the same. The audience gave her a standing ovation, and somewhere, if spirits can laugh, I swear I did loud and proud. Time passes slow when you're old and at peace. But it passes even slower when people start whispering your name again. It had been a full year since Grace's speech in New York. since the Grit project went nationwide. My face had been on morning shows, talk segments, even a magazine spread that called me the grandma who taught America boundaries. Funny thing, I'd fought my whole life to be seen, and now that I wasn't even around to enjoy it. A month after my memorial, Grace was sorting through my safe deposit box. The bank clerk slid a sealed brown envelope across the table. "Your grandmother left this to be delivered 1 year after her passing," he said. Said it was for cleanup. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a tiny brass key. Grace read the note out loud. "Sweetheart, this isn't money. It's closure. Go to the attic. Look behind the cedar chest. What you find there belongs to all of us, but handle it with grace." She laughed through her tears. "Classic Nana Grit," she said. "Even the grave can't stop her from giving orders." That night, she climbed into the attic, flashlight in hand. Dust danced in the beam as she pulled the cedar chest away from the wall. Behind it was a small lockbox, old, dented, and heavy. The key fit perfectly. The will within the will inside were a few photos, my wedding ring, and a thick document labeled Revised Will and Trust Addendum. Grace flipped through the pages, her eyes widening. It wasn't just a will, it was a detailed roadmap. I'd divided everything into 3 parts: a small trust fund for the grandkids, a lifetime stipend for Michael, and the biggest piece, a scholarship fund under the Grit Project, dedicated to women over 50 who'd been financially exploited by their own families. But there was one more paragraph, handwritten at the end, before any distribution. My executor must recover the funds stolen from me in 2026 by Amanda Langley, via forged loan attempts and property misuse. Interest included. Grace's jaw dropped. Her grandmother had left her one last mission. Grace contacted Rita's old law firm, now run by Rita's daughter, Carla. Together they traced the frozen bank accounts, the fake loan paperwork, and, to their surprise, discovered Amanda had secretly profited from a real estate referral years earlier, money that should be gone back into the estate. Carla grinned. "Your grandma planned this like a chess game. All we gotta do is move the last piece." They filed the claim quietly. Amanda, now remarried and living 2 states away, didn't even see it coming. One morning, her accountant called to inform her that $147,000 had been seized from an investment account in her name, redirected to the Langley Trust per court order. Grace didn't gloat. She just whispered, "Rest easy, Nana Grit. Game over." Michael learns the truth. When Grace told her dad, he sat back in silence. "She never told me," he said softly. "She could have used that money herself." "She didn't care about the money," Grace said. "She cared about the message." Michael nodded. "Yeah, that part of her never stopped teaching." He helped Grace finalize the transfer. The scholarship was renamed the Margaret Langley Fund for Reclaiming Lives. Within 6 months, it paid tuition for its first 10 recipients. Every one of them wrote a thank you letter addressed simply to Nana Grit. You'd think Amanda would stay quiet after that, but she never learned silence. One afternoon, Grace got a call. "Is this Grace Langley?" a woman asked. "This is Amanda Langley, well Carver now. I saw the scholarship. I want to help." Grace nearly laughed. "Help? After stealing from it?" Amanda's tone was shaky but desperate. "I know I messed up. I can't live like the villain forever. Please, let me make it right." Grace took a long breath. "You don't fix betrayal with a donation. You fix it with accountability." "Then let me tell my side," Amanda pleaded. Publicly. A month later, Grace hosted a panel for the foundation, a live broadcast about financial abuse inside families. Halfway through, she announced a surprise guest. Out walked Amanda. The audience gasped. Grace introduced her as the woman who once broke my family, and who's here today to talk about what guilt taught her. Amanda's hands trembled around the mic. "I spent years blaming everyone else," she said. "But I was greedy. I thought love was control. Margaret taught me that taking doesn't fill you, it empties you." When she finished, the room was silent. Then, slowly, the crowd began to clap. Not for approval, for closure. Grace stood beside her, hand on her shoulder. "We can't undo the past," she said, "but we can decide what legacy it leaves." Years later, 10 years passed. Grace became a national advocate for elder financial protection. Michael retired early, volunteering at the foundation. Amanda, she stayed in the shadows, doing quiet community work. Maybe guilt, maybe redemption. And me? Well, my name ended up on a plaque in a downtown community center. It reads, Margaret Nana Grit Langley. She took it back so others could too. On what would have been my 100th birthday. Grace stood on the same stage where I once refused to speak. The hall was packed, women, daughters, granddaughters, all carrying their own blue folders full of receipts, proof, and pride. Grace looked into the cameras and said, "This isn't just my grandmother's story. It's every woman's story who ever signed a check with shaking hands. It's every mother who was told she wouldn't like the flight. And it's every survivor who realized that forgiveness and boundaries can share the same heart." She lifted her cup of coffee, my old ritual. "To Nana Grit," she said. The crowd echoed it like a prayer. That night, Grace dreamed of the old house. The kitchen was warm again, sunlight spilling through lace curtains. I was there younger, hairpinned, wearing my old apron. I turned to her and said, "You finished it." Grace smiled in her sleep. "I learned from the best." I winked. "And you kept the receipts." She laughed. "Always." The next morning, she woke up, walked to her office, and hung my photo over the desk. Below it, she placed a small sign that read, "Love isn't weakness. It's the backbone of every comeback." Sometimes, revenge doesn't roar, it whispers through generations. It hides in scholarships, foundations, and daughters who refuse to repeat old mistakes. Margaret Langley may have left this world, but the fire she lit keeps burning in every woman who chooses peace over apology. So if you're listening to this, remember, keep your kindness. Guard your worth. And when someone tries to take what's yours, take it back, with grace. It's strange how some stories don't end, they just change narrators. After Nana Grit's legacy went global, her story became more than a cautionary tale. It became a blueprint. Women everywhere began sharing their own "I took it back" moments, small, quiet revolutions that built an entire movement out of one woman's defiance. But every legacy leaves echoes, and sometimes, those echoes uncover truths you never saw coming. One cold November morning, Grace received a handwritten letter at the Grit Project office. No return address. Just a simple wax seal pressed with the letter H. Inside was a note written in elegant cursive. "You don't know me, but I knew your grandmother long before the world did. There's something she left behind that never reached you. Meet me at the Mapleview Rest Home, room 14, Thursday at 10 a.m. Grace showed the letter to her dad that night. Michael frowned. "You think it's legit?" "She didn't have many secrets left," Grace said, "but something about that handwriting feels real." She couldn't shake the curiosity, so she went. The woman in room 14, the rest home, smelled like antiseptic and fading memories. Grace found room 14, door half open, sunlight falling across a bed where a frail woman sat knitting. "Mrs. Langley's granddaughter?" the woman asked before Grace could speak. "Yes, you knew her." "Oh honey," she smiled. "Knew her. I owed her." Her name was Helen Morris, a retired accountant who once worked at the same bank where Margaret had stopped that fraudulent loan all those years ago. "She saved my job," Helen said. "When the audit started, your grandma didn't just clear her name, she uncovered a bigger scam. Some of the executives were skimming client funds. Quietly, she gave me the proof and told me to make it right. I did. It cost me my career, but it saved a lot of people." Grace was stunned. She never told anyone. Helen reached for a small metal box on the side table. "She didn't want credit, but she left this for you." Inside was a stack of old journals, Nana Grit's handwriting, dated decades earlier. For weeks, Grace read through the journals every night. They were raw, not polished like memoirs, but honest. In one entry, dated 1998, Margaret wrote, "I thought forgiveness meant letting go. Turns out, It means letting go of what doesn't hold you upright anymore. Another, from 2005. If they ever tell my story, I hope they leave the messy parts in. That's where the backbone grew. But it was the last journal that stopped Grace cold. The pages detailed something no one in the family knew. The real reason Margaret had become so guarded with her money. When Harold had passed, he'd left behind a series of bad business debts. A friend had convinced her to co-sign a property investment, promising it was safe. That friend had vanished, leaving her bankrupt for years. Margaret had rebuilt everything from scratch, selling pies, renting rooms, saving pennies until she could buy her peace back. Grace closed the journal with tears in her eyes. Her grandmother hadn't just survived betrayal once, she'd survived it twice. Inspired by the journals, Grace announced a new branch of the Grit Project, the Restart Initiative. It provided small business grants to women over 50 who'd lost everything to scams, divorces, or family betrayal. In the press release, Grace quoted one of the journals, Resilience ISNT, about bouncing back. It's about building something stronger than what broke. Applications poured in from across the country. Within 6 months, the program funded 72 new startups, bakeries, boutiques, consulting firms, even a podcast called the Late Bloomers Club. And every recipient got a blue folder, embossed with the Grit logo. Inside, keep your proof, keep your power. Meanwhile, Michael was downsizing his old storage unit when he found a dusty envelope labeled, "For my son, open when you re-ready." Inside was a key to an old mailbox at a rural post office they'd used decades earlier. He drove out the next morning, the drive long and quiet, like life was holding its breath. The clerk handed him a single sealed box. Postmarked 2007. Inside were photos, not of family, but of strangers. Women, each with a handwritten note from Margaret, helped her keep her pension, stopped her son from forging the deed, taught her how to close her own accounts. It hit Michael like a punch to the chest. His mother hadn't just saved herself. She'd spent years secretly helping others do the same. She built an army, he whispered. By the next year, the Grit Project had chapters in 12 states. Grace was running national seminars. Michael managed the scholarship funds, and the Nana Grit story became a movement. But the most beautiful twist came from an unexpected place. Amanda's daughter, Lily, now grown. Lily reached out to Grace. She'd seen the documentaries, read the foundation updates, and wanted to volunteer. "I can't change what my mom did," she said, voice shaking, "but I want to be part of what she couldn't understand, kindness with a spine." Grace hesitated, but saw the sincerity. She smiled. Then welcome home. That moment, 2 generations of women healing what the last broke became the face of the foundation. New campaign. We don't break the chain, we mend it. On the 10th anniversary of Margaret's passing, Grace published her grandmother's journals as a book. She titled it Echoes of Her Strength. The opening dedication read, "For every woman who thought starting over meant she failed, you're just getting to the good part." It hit bestseller lists in weeks. But what made Grace cry wasn't the fame, it was the letters. Thousands of them. From daughters, mothers, grandmothers, all saying the same thing. "She told my story. The world had caught up to Nana Grit's truth. That quiet strength isn't invisible. It's just patient." Years later, the city built a monument downtown, not a statue, but a bronze park bench facing the sunrise. On the backrest, etched in clean letters, "Sit here when you're ready to take it back." People began leaving notes there, folded papers tucked under the armrest. "I left him. I opened my own account. I finally said no." It became a sacred little corner of the city. Every morning, someone new would sit, breathe, and start over. Grace's closing reflections in an interview years later, a reporter asked Grace, "If your grandmother could see all this, what do you think she'd say?" Grace smiled. "She'd probably roll her eyes and say, 'Took you long enough.' Then she'd hand me a receipt, just to prove she still kept them." The reporter laughed. "And what did she teach you most?" "That love without self-respect isn't love at all," Grace said. "And that silence is only golden if it's peaceful, not forced." One summer evening, Grace sat on that bronze bench with her own daughter, a little girl with bright eyes and curls like Margaret's. "Mom," the child said, "who's this seat for?" Grace smiled. "For people who need to remember they're strong." Her daughter thought for a moment. "Like Great Nana." "Exactly like her." The girl leaned her head on her mother's arm. "Then we should sit here every time we forget." Grace kissed her forehead. "Deal." As the sun dipped below the skyline, the camera of memory pulled back, 3 generations linked not by perfection, but by perseverance. This was echoes of her strength, the continuation of the Thanksgiving she took it back. One woman's act of self-respect turned into a movement that changed generations. So if you're listening tonight, and your peace feels out of reach, remember Margaret's words: you don't have to scream to be powerful. You just have to stop saying yes when you mean no. Because sometimes, power whispers. Legacy stories age like wine, they get richer, sharper, and sometimes uncover things you never expected to taste. 10 years after Grace published Echoes of Her Strength, a journalist named Hannah Cole found herself chasing a rumor. A rumor that Nana Grit Hadan T just inspired a movement. She built an underground network of women who quietly brought justice where the law had failed. It started with an email sent to Hannah's newsroom at The Observer. If you're looking for real stories about hidden heroes, look up the Grit Files. Ask for Archive Box 19. No names, no men, no nonsense. At first she thought it was spam. But the sender's address was untraceable, a scrambled relay through old school servers. Curiosity won. She called the foundation. "Hi, this is Hannah Cole. I'm looking for something called the Grit Files." Silence on the other end. Then a cautious voice said, "Hold, please." When the line clicked back, Grace herself answered. Her tone carried that calm steel she'd inherited straight from Margaret. "I haven't heard that name in years," Grace said. "Who told you?" Hannah hesitated. "Anonymous tip. Said it started with your grandmother." Grace sighed. "Meet me tomorrow. No recorders. Bring coffee." The files in the basement. The next morning, Grace led Hannah down to the foundation's basement. Rows of metal cabinets lined the concrete walls. She stopped at one labeled Archive 19. "Everything in here," Grace said, "was collected by my grandmother and Rita. Cases the system ignored. Women who couldn't afford lawyers, who were too scared to go public. They helped them quietly off the record." Hannah opened the first drawer. Inside were folders, thick, handwritten, meticulous. Each marked with a code: G92A, G94D, G05L. Every file told a story. A widow in Florida who'd been conned out of her pension. A nurse in Texas whose son drained her retirement account. A small-town baker who discovered her husband's secret mortgage. In the margins, notes in Margaret's neat handwriting. "Call Rita, verify statement. Funds recovered through private sale. Tell her she's stronger than she thinks." It wasn't just record keeping. It was redemption management. The story behind the stories Hannah spent weeks reading. Each file connected like threads in a web. Different people, same pattern. Trust, betrayal, resilience. She realized the Grit Files weren't about revenge. They were about restoration. Women helping women fix what others broke. One late night, Hannah found a sealed envelope tucked behind the last drawer. It was addressed simply, "To whoever finds this next." Inside was a flash drive. A video file labeled grit_final.m4v. She plugged it in, and the screen flickered to life. There was Margaret Langley, sitting at her kitchen table, older, calm, eyes sharp as ever. The final message: "If you're seeing this, it means you've found my work. You might think I started this to get even. I didn't. I did it because waiting for someone else to fix the problem was killing us. We don't need heroes. We just need receipts, resolve, and each other." She paused, smiling faintly. When the law sleeps, kindness wakes up, but kindness with a spine. If you carry this forward, do it quietly. Let justice move in plain clothes. Then she winked. "And keep the folders alphabetical. Rita hated when I didn't." The screen faded to black. The new investigation. Hannah's article went live 3 months later. The Grit Files. How one woman built an invisible network of justice. It blew up overnight. Talk shows debated whether Nana Grit had been a saint or a vigilante. Politicians quoted her in speeches about elder protection, and women across the country started mailing in new blue folders labeled G2025. Grace called Hannah. "Congratulations," she said. "You just woke the sleeping giant." Hannah laughed nervously. "Is that good or bad?" Grace smiled. "With my grandmother, it's always both." A case reopened among the letters that poured in. One caught Grace's eye, from a woman named Sylvia Wade, 68, who claimed her nursing home savings had been redirected by a facility manager. The signature looked familiar. It was the same manager who worked at Mapleview Rest Home, the place where Grace had first met Helen Morris. "That's not a coincidence," Grace said. "It's unfinished business." So she and Hannah dug deeper. Bank logs, transferred trails, property deeds, all the same tricks Margaret used. And sure enough, they uncovered a network of small-scale embezzlement targeting elderly patients. They turned everything over to the police. When the arrests hit the news, the anchor closed with one line: "Justice served," courtesy of the Grit Files. The global ripple 6 months later. The Grit Project partnered with international groups. Workshops appeared in London, Toronto, Sydney. The motto, "We don't wait for permission." At every event, Grace carried that flash drive on a chain around her neck. It wasn't about symbolism, it was about keeping the spark close. The return of the journalist. Years passed, and Hannah's career soared. But she never forgot the files. When she retired, she left a letter for the next generation of reporters. If you ever lose faith in what stories can do, read the Grit Files. Somewhere in those pages is proof that ordinary people can change the system. One signature, one boundary, one brave yes at a time. The modern echo. By 2040, the Grit Files had evolved into a public database, anonymous, encrypted, and accessible to any woman seeking help. Every time someone uploaded proof of financial abuse, a mentor somewhere responded within hours. The logo, a small blue folder with a golden paperclip, Margaret's original, and every year, on the anniversary of her first Thanksgiving revolt, thousands of women posted 3 simple words online: "I took it back." Final scene, the bench again. A new generation sat on that same bronze bench facing the sunrise, mothers, daughters, strangers, all carrying stories that started differently but ended the same way, with self-respect. A little girl traced the engraved words with her finger. "Mom, who was Nana Grit?" Her mother smiled. "Someone who proved you can be kind and unbreakable at the same time." The girl thought for a moment. "Can I be like her?" "You already are," the mother said. Camera pans out. The park fills with blue folders in people's hands, shimmering in the morning light. Soft music rises. Gentle piano with distant chatter of life beginning again. Voiceover 0-4 YouTube. Every story starts with silence. But the ones that change the world start when someone breaks it. Margaret Langley didn't just stand up for herself. She built a language for everyone who couldn't find the words. And now, decades later, her voice lives in the people who still whisper the same promise. Never mistake my peace for weakness. Fade out. Payback Files. Closing hook. This was the Grit Files, the final chapter in the Thanksgiving She Took It Back series. If you've ever rebuilt yourself, piece by piece, this story was for you. Drop a comment. I'm keeping my receipts. Because here, we don't just tell revenge stories. We tell redemption blueprints. Stay strong, stay wise, and remember, peace doesn't whisper for approval. It signs its own name. Time moves fast when purpose becomes contagious. 30 years had passed since that first Thanksgiving, when Margaret Langley took her peace back with nothing but a folder and a backbone. What started as one woman's stand in a quiet kitchen had now become something the world called the Grit Network, a living chain of people who refused to let injustice hide behind family ties, contracts, or fear. But peace, like any revolution, never stops evolving. The global shift. By 2045, the Grit Network had more than 1 million members worldwide. What began as support groups and legal clinics had grown into a digital movement, encrypted chat rooms, AI-assisted tracking for elder fraud, community watch teams, and even crisis response pods, led entirely by volunteers. Their motto hung above every office wall: "We don't fight louder, we fight smarter." Grace Langley, now gray-haired but steady as ever, served as the global director. Her daughter, Maya, a data engineer, handled the tech backbone. The same kind of software once used for corporate profit was now used to protect people like Margaret once was. They called it the receipts engine. Every digital signature, every fake account, every ghost transaction, logged, cross-checked, and flagged in minutes. And when the first $400 million international fraud ring got taken down because of that engine, Grace simply smiled. "Grandma would have loved the irony," she said. But success attracts shadows. A cyber law firm calling itself Horizon Trust began smearing the network online, calling them vigilantes, accusing them of digital interference. One of their clients, a conglomerate quietly under investigation for siphoning pension funds. The Grit Network froze their access and called in their new legal head, Lily Carver, Amanda's daughter. Yes, the same little girl who once watched her mother's downfall was now defending the movement her grandmother had started. When Grace told her that, Lily smiled faintly. "Guess redemption really does run in our blood." Then came the leak. Horizon Trust hacked one of the servers and released thousands of private reports, women's names, stories, receipts, onto the dark web. It was chaos. Headlines screamed, "The Grit Network exposed." But instead of hiding, Grace did something Margaret would have done. She walked straight into the storm. That night, she streamed a live address watched by over 12 million people. They thought shame would silence us. They forgot who taught us to speak. "My grandmother started this with a note on a kitchen counter. We finish it with truth." Then she did the unthinkable. She released every record herself. Redacted for safety, with names hidden but stories intact. The internet didn't turn on them. It stood with them. People saw the patterns: same fraud, same victims, different countries. What Horizon Trust meant for humiliation became the largest crowdsourced justice map ever built. And, overnight, a new law was born. The Langley Act, protecting digital financial rights for vulnerable citizens worldwide. Weeks later, Grace received a package from a courier with no return address. Inside was an old USB drive and a handwritten note: "Thought you'd want this back. Your grandmother's last file never made it to the archive. File name, G-Final." Grace plugged it in. The screen flickered to life, another grainy video of Margaret, older now, sitting by a window, the sun on her face. If the Grit Network ever goes global, remember this: justice isn't a fight, it's a habit. Don't build monuments, build mirrors. Make sure every woman who looks into one can say, "I'm safe now." Grace watched the screen fade to black and whispered, "We did it, Grandma. You're heard." That year, they held the Grit Summit on Thanksgiving Day, 50 years to the date since it all began. Thousands filled a hall in New York, each wearing a small blue pin in the shape of a folder. Grace stepped on stage with Maya and Lily beside her. Half a century ago, one woman refused to be left behind. She didn't start a movement for praise. She started it so no one else would ever have to start alone. Behind her, a screen lit up with images of the bench, the folders, the faces of people who'd taken their lives back. The crowd rose in silence, then began chanting the words that had crossed generations. "I took it back." Later that night, Grace stood alone on the rooftop, city lights shimmering below. She opened her grandmother's final journal and wrote the last line herself. The world finally caught up with Nana Grit, and thank God she didn't wait for permission. She closed the book, looked to the sky, and smiled. Every generation inherits the silence of the one before. But once someone like Margaret Langley stands up, the silence breaks for good. So if you've ever been left behind, underestimated, or betrayed, remember, your peace is not a gift to be given. It's a right you defend every day you wake up and choose yourself. Because the real power of the Grit Network isn't in its size. It's in every quiet person who finally says, "No more." You've just heard The Grit Network, the final chapter in the Thanksgiving She Took It Back series, an entire generation's journey from betrayal to balance. If this story made you feel seen or stronger, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next real-life story of redemption and power. Tell us in the comments, what have you taken back for yourself this year? Because here on Payback Files Stories, we don't chase revenge, we build resilience. Stay kind, stay unshakable, and like Nana Grit said, keep your receipts and your peace.